practice regenerative agriculture here at Tulip Tree Gardens. What that means to us is regenerating the soils, thereby producing better plants and producing better oils. We produce a full spectrum oil, which includes all the original compounds found within the plant, such as terpenes, essential oils, as well as different cannabinoids like CBG and CBN and CBC. Being a grower and processor, since we control the quality all the way from seed through bottle, we're allowed to really express the cannabinoids as they were found in the plant in its most beneficial form. We grow a number of different strains and cannabinoid profiles here. The advantages of being able to work with multiple strains and compounds allows us to selectively choose which oils to use for specific clients and specific conditions. Join us at Tulip Tree Gardens in restoring the health and wellness of our locality, the earth, and its inhabitants.
Come experience the Tulip Tree Gardens difference, where wellness grows.
We're first generation farmers. Tulip Tree Gardens had originated as a micro farm. So we were micro farming on 3/4 of an acre in Crete. And Jesse and I fell in love with soil. We fell in love with soil health. We really became just obsessed with it. And so we knew we wanted to be a farmer, and we wanted that lifestyle for not only us, but for our kids. So yeah, we purchased this property in 2015, and we became first generation farmers.
So wait, how do you make the jump?
2018.
2018.
18.
Yeah.
How do you make the jump from 3/4 of an acre to 63 acres? That seems to be a little bit of a big progression.
Yeah, I know. It was definitely a leap. You know, we actually had an offer on a 30-acre plot in Moni, and we weren't planning on moving. We were just kind of going to ease into it. And 3 days before we were going to sign the contract, the old man died. And so it went into this crazy trust, and we're like, okay, we're not dealing with it. But we needed to get on farm for that season because with the passing the 2018 Farm Bill, we wanted to grow industrial hemp that year. And so we needed to get a greenhouse up, and we needed to get going. So we kind of stumbled upon this place, and we're like, okay, this is way bigger than we ever wanted. And so yeah, we were like, okay, this is it, I guess. And we put a crazy offer in, and we sat at the kitchen table in the old farmhouse and sat with the previous owner, and we shook hands. They gave us the keys before we even gave them a check. It was the craziest thing, but it was just like an old school way of, you know, doing a contract. Yeah, so we definitely from 3/4 an acre to 63 acres now is a big leap. But we know that by having this bigger farm, it's a bigger impact. You know, a bigger impact on our soil, bigger impact for our community, most importantly. So yeah, we're just
And did the prior owner, were you able to kind of have a cup of coffee with her and hear stories of the farm and the origin and roots?
Yeah. So we dealt with the owner's daughter. Yeah, we heard a ton of stories, which I love the rich history of, you know, a lot of the barns and what she did growing up here, and you know how this was a full-fledged working farm 55 years ago, and now we're just trying to bring it back. Really, we're trying to revive not only the soil but all the buildings on the property too.
It's an old bootlegger farm too.
Okay.
So yeah, they were bootlegging back during Prohibition, and there's a tunnel underneath. It's collapsed now, but underneath the corn, or the corn crib.
Yeah.
Down to where the still is allegedly still buried, but.
That's fun.
Get me an excavator and we'll dig it. We'll try digging it out.
When you guys unearth that, we'll do a documentary style effort. Then we can tie into the Browns portion.
Yeah, we tried to dig it up. We found a bunch of like old bottles. They put it like in like old perfume bottles, and it was like, so we know there's something there, but we just haven't found it. One day. Yeah.
Guys, be careful.
This is the barn.
Yeah. So we want to restore this and make this the new farm stand. That's the goal.
Okay, I was gonna say event space or farm stand.
Yeah, and really just, you know, be able to supply local goods, you know, from other farmers and kind of expand the farm stand. Yeah, so
we're excited about getting it done.
I heard, and this was hearsay through some old, I used to be in public policy, but I heard in Illinois, if you have a barn predating a certain era, it's a huge tax break, and that's why you see a lot of these barns that have fallen and into disrepair. And
I've heard that's a thing. Farmers telling you never to tear down a barn.
Yeah, and that's why I don't know if that's a legitimate reason or if that's just speculation.
Yeah.
But and the plan is before winter.
Oh yeah, this has to be done
yeah,
before winter.
it won't last another winter. We got to at least get it sealed up, and then hopefully restore it. Maybe this fall or in the spring. Cash flow.
Plywood these days.
Yeah, I know, and plywood. It doubled our price. We were talking about doing it this spring, but it doubled the price of everything.
It's insane.
Lumber
heard about it, but
prices and stuff.
Yeah.
The wood prices are crazy.
Walk in Home Depot just to build a little lattice protector for the garbage cans. I'm like,
Yeah. Yes.
I know, it's costing
$75 for lattice? Like, are you kidding me?
Or our parents are looking at doing a deck, and it's ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, now it's that eternal plastic comes into play.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, hemp, we'll talk about that in the field. We'll talk about how hemp is really going to fill that void for wood. The building materials that can be made out of hemp, and like I said, we'll talk about more of that in the field, which is, we see something really exciting with it.
Cool.
You guys gonna grow hemp?
We grow hemp, yeah.
Yeah, so we're not running production today, but I did leave some of the production stuff. Not that you want to show any of it, because it's not necessarily impressive in terms of labs. But that being said, we produce a couple of different varieties of distillate here. We have a CO2 rig, which we can do CO2 extraction, both supercritical and subcritical, high temperatures, high pressures, ultra low vacuum type stuff. So we can do some neat stuff with that. Particularly interesting with cosmetics that are looking for some really pure lipids and fats and waxes. So that's what's unique about CO2, in that ethanol, when you're trying to pull the fats and waxes out and actually use those, it becomes a little bit more difficult.
And this is for production of the liquid distillate that you can put in.
Yeah. So distillate. So this is basically distillate. This is basically what it is at the end. This is a couple days old, and then it hardens. So basically, when they're pouring it in a typical lab picture, it's
Honey.
It's like honey, and then after about 24 hours, it'll start to harden.
So then we use that extract for our branded products. So we have a group of branded products. We do oils, we do CBD topicals, we do edibles, we have smokable flour as well. And then we focus on actually launching brands for other companies as well. So we private label turnkey solutions for other brands as well, really nationwide.
But that's just CBD?
It's just CBD. So CBD is, what we consider the industrial hemp plant or CBD products is anything below 0.3% THC. Anything above 0.3% THC is considered cannabis, and we're not legally allowed to grow that or sell any of those products. So it has to stay below the 0.3% THC. So CBD really is, really what CBD is CBD is an anti-inflammatory at its core, at its best, it's an anti-inflammatory. So a lot of people are taking it for pain relief, anxiety relief. We deal with a lot of major ailments with cancer clients and epileptic clients. So it's super rewarding because, people are looking to earth for solutions for their medicines and holistic approach to their medicine. So it's been super rewarding being able to really help people, use this type of medicine.
And is this a regulated industry, or you can just grow and distribute, or
Yeah, so it's not regulated by, the medicine itself is not regulated by the FDA, but we do carry a license, a hemp grower's license and a hemp processor's license to do this. We do that with the state of Illinois Department of Agriculture.
Nice. Yeah, we were talking to a rep from PharmaCann. We're trying to get a cultivation tour of their facility in Dwight.
Yeah.
And the regulation for that industry in terms of tracking from seed to retail is intense, and daily inventory counts. And So, but none of the similar.
No. I mean, we realize that stuff is going to come down. So we're trying to prepare for it because we know that the regulations are coming, and we're actually ready for some regulations. We're ready for some label guidance. We're ready for some dosing guidance. There's a lot of bad apples in the industry that aren't third-party lab testing their products, and what they say is in their product is really not in their product. So we want some regulation to come down to have some direction.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Yeah.
Nice, and you can just take it from the field to the farm stand and.
Yeah, so we harvest, obviously, we grow the industrial hemp, we harvest it, and then we process it here. So we dry and cure it here, and then Jesse will extract it with those different methods, and then we use that extract to make the products. So yeah, it's like we call this the farm lab, you know?
Yeah, it's like a farm lab.
products.
Yeah. It's modern farming. And modern farmers include lab.
I remember the first time I was in a modern day combine, right? You have this
Yep.
archaic vision of a farming implement.
Yep.
And they had GPS and Bluetooth.
No,
and
yeah,
speed
and you got to
and
have your hydraulics training, and you got to be, It's part of what a lot of modern farms are going to be looking like. I think more and more is the inclusion of botanicals and the processing of those botanicals.
Well, and from my limited understanding, it was always a cost point, right? Is when the organic individual rows of produce can outperform the rows of corn and soybean, then it'll be a marketable product. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think as long as there's glyphosates, you're going to have people using them. And yeah, that's a tough thing. I mean, organic produce, though, more and more people are demanding it. More and more people are saying, I'm just not going to buy my tomatoes from the store that are imported from 800 miles away or 1,000 miles away. So people are being more intentional about their purchasing, which is driving our business considerably, and really the entire vegetable business, I think, considerably. And the same goes for the hemp as well. People want to know where they're getting it from. They want to know how it's grown. They want to see a picture of the farmer and the farmer's kids. And that's why we encourage other farmers that grow hemp to brand their hemp as much as they can. Because it just creates that connection from the consumer back to the soil that I think the country's really looking for now, and we feel is really important.
Yeah.
This is more just like a prognostication question, but with the rapid adoption and absorption of the cannabis industry, do you see CBD remaining its own separate entity moving forward due to the fact that it's not legislated, or do you see it combining?
Yeah, that's a really good question.
Yes and no. Certain cannabinoids, I think, are going to be handed over to the cannabis industry. Right now, industrial hemp produces a number of cannabinoids that you're just never going to find in most of the plants that you find in the dispensary. Dispensary plants are grown for very high THC content. Some outfits are growing for terpene content, but primarily, by and large, they're moving what sells, and what's selling is the high THC. So you're not going to find these unique cannabinoid-rich profiles like we have in hemp. In hemp, we work with high CBG strains. CBDV, it's a variant strain that they just would never have they wouldn't have.
And that has the more therapeutic qualities, is that?
Absolutely, yeah. So we're able to work. I mean, we're working with 4 to 5 different anti-inflammatories within one plant structure that they just simply don't do, which is probably why they buy distillate from us. One of the largest cannabis companies in the country actually purchases their broad spectrum oil from us. So it's a unique relationship.
Yeah, I know, right?
It's a unique relationship between the hemp industry and the cannabis industry. Delta 8 THC, which we do produce and carry, is probably going to get regulated and moved over to cannabis. I think you're seeing that in some of the other states already.
Because that's a psychoactive.
Because it's mildly psychoactive. You may see things like CBN also going that way because it's mildly psychoactive. I think that's a tragic way to approach a holistic essential oil.
Federal government's not been really treading lightly on those type of things.
Exactly. Yeah, and and there's some bad actors out there that are producing products that are way too high in a dosing for Delta 8 and CBN. So people are having, they're not being hospitalized necessarily, but they're having terrible evenings. So you're going to see a lot more of that kind of get regulated, I think, with the new federal regulations. Interestingly, though, they haven't really done much yet, which is why I think a lot of us processors have been standing around for the last 2 years saying, hey, there is some guidance that we want here. Regulation's a good thing when it's done well. And labeling guidance, like Rachel said, huge for us. We want
the Growers Association is waiting for the state's waiting for the
Yeah.
federal, and everybody's looking at everybody pointing.
Yeah.
things like labeling guidance are good is huge. You really need some of that. And seed to sale tracking guidance. What exact tracking do we need to implement as an industry? And that will allow us to implement what measures we want to do above and beyond as a company.
Yeah, and with us being a seed to bottle company, that doesn't scare us, right? Other brands, they're not really knowing where their CBD or hemp is grown or where it's coming from, and like there's no connection to the farmer, and like none of these products would be possible without the farmer, right? So for us, the seed to sale tracking is easy. It's coming from the field, it's coming in here, it's getting processed and into the product. So we really want some type of regulation, like Jesse says, one regulation that supports the farmer, most importantly, because I think the industry has fluctuated so much over the past 3 years, and the farmer's losing, and they're putting in all that hard work, and that person with the branded product, is winning, so.
Yeah, and the farmers invested a lot of money.
They lost a lot of money too.
They've invested hundreds of thousands of acres across this country over the last 2 years, and so there's been a definite price decline, a monster price decline, bigger than what most people predicted on the wholesale side of the product. And unfortunately, that's negatively affected the farmer worse than anybody. Processors lost too, and processors definitely have lost big, and there's a ton of them that have gone out of business across the country over the last year. But a lot of those processors were investor funded, play money.
Very large.
It would come out of a high risk budget in somebody's trust, something like that. The farmers are the ones that said, hey, I'm going to take $50,000, I'm going to install an irrigation system, I'm going to install exactly what we're supposed to do for hemp, and we're going to project it out at $200 a pound for dried flower, and project it out for $2-3 a pound for biomass. Now biomass is moving at 25 cents on large orders.
There's just so much of it on the market.
And are there egg subsidies for you guys like there are for corn and soy?
None. No. In Europe, yes. Yeah, in Europe, hemp farmers are entitled to most of the same subsidies that they have here in the United States. It's very different. I think that's coming. I think there's definitely been a lot of people in Congress saying, "Hey, wait a second. This needs to be supported, and we need to be subsidizing certain things, fiber fields, fiber processing installations. All these farmers are dying for a third crop. They're growing corn and soy back to back year over year. And if they had a third crop that they could take to a processor and get a check, not have to wait for 6 months like they do with CBD, they'd be much more inclined to grow fiber.
Yeah.
But that's going to be this long period of time, because there isn't a subsidy that's going to give a great incentive to a processor to install a $12 million fiber facility.
But that's coming. I mean, hemp
It's
for
coming.
fiber
Yeah.
is coming. It's coming very fast, and we believe in 5 years you will not go throughout your day without interacting with an industrial hemp product, whether it be your water bottle or the plastic container for your food. Hemp is taking
Like
that
denim,
space.
like cotton,
Denim,
like these all.
car parts.
Yeah, Levi's, I believe they're looking into
Pants, I heard,
looking into the stitching, particularly for the stitching. Your boots, all the boot stitching, all this cotton garbage, polypropylene boot stitching, there's certain things they have to work out still in terms of preservatives for the stitching, and there's decades of research that we've lost out on, particularly in fiber. So, that's all coming along. Europe seems to be ahead of us. Canada's definitely ahead of us in fiber still, but it's coming. Ford Motor, they've got car parts that they are showing a lot of interest in using hemp in.
And building materials too.
Yeah, infusing it with carbon fiber. You can fuse it with carbon fiber. You can do some really wild stuff with it. So Yeah.
The car body by hemp, huh?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it actually makes sense. I mean, it's lightweight, it's strong. Yeah, I think you'll see more building materials early on too, particularly with the wood. There's going to be a lot of building materials coming out. We're doing ours, and we'll show you a little bit of that in the field.
Yeah, we're growing some hemp for fiber this year and then hemp for CBD too. So we're kind of doing a test plot to see how it works, and then hopefully make some building materials in the fall with it and make like a livestock structure. We're always looking at ways to diversify our profit centers, but then also, the industrial hemp plant is really cleaning the soil. It's sucking toxins out of the soil, so it's kind of restoring the soil for us, and so that's why we think it's such a critical crop, especially in that third rotation for other farmers: corn, soy, hemp.
Sucking
because
it
they're
out of a
cleaning,
non-edible product.
right?
Yeah.
And it's going into your jeans or your plastic containers. So yeah, it's an exciting crop to grow. It's an interesting crop to grow. At first when we jumped in, we're like, okay, this is going to be a really easy crop to grow. This is a weed, right? And so it's been a huge learning curve, learning this plant, working with this plant for the past 3 years. So yeah, I mean, definitely some challenges, but we've learned a ton. So.
Yeah. And are you guys insecticide free, or do you guys use chemicals?
Yeah, we're completely free. So we actually, and we're also, we produce all of our own fertilizer, compost.
Okay.
So we don't import any fertilizer or nutrients or amendments of any kind.
Is it all animal derived, or?
Yeah, it's all animal derived from multiple sources. So we have cow manure, we have horse manure, and we have vermicompost. So that the three of those, and we have hogs. So by being able to do a rotational grazing of the hogs through different paddocks, and then bringing in different composts at different time of the year for different needs. For instance, like all of our vegetable starts and everything, they get vermicompost because it's delicate, but it's a quick nitrate that you can get into the soil.
Is that a tight rotation with the hogs, or do you just go with the field that's overgrown, or
No, it's pretty much with the hogs. We're just going with whatever's going to be overgrown. Like you'll see down there, I'll show you where they're going to go in next. It's a pretty gnarly clover patch, and so they'll go in there and they'll just kind of mush it up for a week, and then
tear it up.
tear it up, and then we'll do our job after that.
So we grow, obviously we grow industrial hemp, and then we grow herbs, flowers, tomatoes, peppers. We believe that it's more than just hemp. We believe a diet with whole plants, local plants, is really when you're going to receive the optimum benefits of adding hemp to your wellness regime. So yeah, we do all heirloom varieties. So we have like black cherry tomatoes, we have carbon tomatoes, we do great heirloom peppers. We have cardinal basil, lemon squashes. So we focus on really heirloom varieties that you can't find in the grocery store.
Heirloom variety means that you can take the seed and plant it again the following season.
Yeah, anything that's a non-GMO seed, actually, you can save that seed. A GMO seed, you can't save it and plant it that following year. So obviously all of our products, all of our plants are all non-GMO, organically grown. Like Jesse says, we use, vermicompost, regular compost, from manure to feed the plants too. So we're not using any synthetic fertilizers, which cuts down costs. We're a family farm, we're organically growing, we don't have this big capital over us. So we always have to look at ways that we can pull from the farm in order to be successful.
We get in here and we run minimal heat. We run very little heat. We're just sustainable and regenerative, right? So, you're not going to see a lot of big heaters. You're not going to see a lot of, ultra high wattage lights and things like that. We do have some indoor lights that we use in the wintertime, but by and large, we really try to minimize any inputs that we do. So we built this thing out of, obviously what you can see. And yeah, we run hemp on these tables and all of our vegetables, tomatoes. Hemp's coming in really nice right now. You're starting to see true leaves on some of these.
True leaves is the first leaf after the sprout?
Yeah, so these ones that are going to be coming out of here once you start to develop the fan plant. So these are all just germinated. They're a little bit so you can see some of them are stringy almost. So you want this stem to harden up and develop its, the second and third branches, nodes, and with multiple nodes on it. And then once you have that, she'll be about 8 inches tall and you can move her. Production tomatoes. These are San Marzanos for sauces. We don't do aroma here. We do a San Marzano. We love it. Our customers seem to like it too, so why change that? But we've got our different producers.
So like black beauties or something.
Yeah, we've got like, you know, Happy Homestead.
There's so many colors, right?
I know.
Orange, red, black, green, purple.
Basil.
Basil. We've got some basil that germinated halfway.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then so here's some more hemp. So yeah, that was the lifter and the white CBG over there. Here's Suver Haze, sour Suver Haze, which is a sour version of it. And then all of these have been crossbred with Gorilla Glue number 4 in the immediate previous progeny. So it's going to be some really some interesting.
And that's for the
growth.
different profiles.
Yeah,
of CBD that comes out.
the different, you know, the cannabinoid content with. Some you'll have a higher content of CBG, some will have a higher content of CBD, and then obviously the minors, the variations in the minors is going to be, you know, really interesting as well.
Well, see, this is our 3rd year, so we're turning this. It was a conventional farm, so we're turning it into organic. And they say the 3rd year is the most difficult.
Because most of the stuff's underground.
Yeah, it's
right?
coming back. You know, we've seen a huge influx of really wildlife come back here too. As much as we don't like foxes and coyotes, but we're organic. We're the only organic farm in a pretty big radius. So all the moles and the mice come here. So what else? It attracts the foxes, the coyotes, the owls, the eagles. And so we're seeing this wildlife actually return here. Pheasants the other day, which are people are like, we don't see pheasants around here, which is incredibly exciting because it's the organic farm. You know, we're allowing Mother Nature to kind of do the work, and we're trying to just walk alongside of her, you know, trying to work with her instead of against her.
Yeah, we've seen that on a small scale in our, you know, urban landscape, where we stop using chemicals, and all of a sudden lightning bugs are back in 2 years,
Right.
and the green lacewings are back in
Right.
Sure,
2
yeah.
years. So it's just like, why don't my neighbors have this? And it's because they're putting chemicals on their
Yeah. Well, even like dandelions and stuff in our grass, that's the earliest food source for the bees. And you know, we're always worried about this green grass, but it's like the dandelions, the clover that's in there, the creeping Charlie that's in there that brings all of these flowers is feeding our bees, and it's so critical. And so we're big proponents on no perfect lawns, let Mother Nature, you know, do that. And
no monocultures in
monoculture,
nature.
yeah,
It's just-
right,
yeah, it just doesn't
exactly,
exist.
you know. And obviously it comes with struggles and with the pests and diseases and the weeds. You know, we do a lot of labor, you know, weeding. That's a ton of labor that we have to spend, and but it's worth it. You know, we don't know any other way, and that's the thing. We weren't a family farm before this. We're first generation farmers, and so it's like we weren't stuck in this ways of, hey, this is how Grandpa did it. This is our way of doing it.
Yeah.
You know, and we can teach up the next generation to do farming differently and think differently. It's exciting. It really is.
Well, that's, I mean, what I find is anytime you start talking gardening with somebody, everybody's got a tip and a trick.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Which is great, you know, because that's what I love about farming and gardening is like you can constantly learn. You know, you're always learning something new. You're always adjusting the following year.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, if it's not squash bugs, it's the gypsy moths.
Exactly.
If it's not gypsy moth, yeah.
My arch enemy.
Japanese beetles that's our big enemy is the Japanese beetles with their
And that's
super invasive.
like the grub, right? That's
Yeah, they
in the
come from the
ground?
ground.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they come for like 2-3 weeks, and they're like, oh, this is the organic farm in the area. So they're like, hey, you know, and they'll all just show up one day, and they'll last for about 2 weeks, and
Yeah.
and
we scramble.
Flicking them off and squishing them, or
No, we don't do anything with them.
Soap sprays
Yeah.
sometimes. We'll put soap sprays on our plants to time to
just
cure
crush your
them. But
fingers in them.
yeah, I mean, with the
I
large
guess the ducks
diversity.
and chickens probably.
Yeah.
Oh, they love them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can
They
send
can
them
only
out
eat so
to-
much though.
Yeah.
I mean, there's literally there's got to be millions upon millions of them,
Yeah.
when it happens. But yeah, it is crazy. Like the rapeseed. So the yellow flowers, that's the rapeseed right now. That's not tansies. It's not the weeds that you see in these other fields. That rapeseed, they'll eat that like crazy. They'll just devour it, and
That's
that's
what
why
we want them to eat.
we want them to eat that. That's why we have these little pollinator banks out here. You'll see them all around with our clover banks, you know.
Oh, yeah.
And
I've heard that the strips It's a
Yeah.
similar concept?
Yeah,
Kind of
similar
little island?
concept. Yeah. So we do these pollinator banks kind of all over, and we leave them, and it works out real well. Yeah, it's nice.
Yeah, and then obviously we use regenerative farming practices. So, we're working on ways that we have to till, to move some of this soil, but we're working on ways like this, making it a permanent installation here. We're saying, hey, we have a bunch of perennials going in here. This section we're not going to till, we're going to let that go. Same with this concept, we're going to do the layering method here, and then work our way into doing completely no-till. But with the soil being a conventional farm, we have to work the soil in
Talk to
order
me
to add some
about the
nitrogen.
layering method. That's the fertilizer on top that you were mentioning earlier? Or?
Yeah, exactly. So it's the layering method. Basically, our plants go into the ground and we're layering them with fertilizer, and then we're layering them with mulch. And then that following year, we're not tugging anything out. We're not tilling anything. We're just letting those roots and all that energy go back into the soil, leaving those roots in the soil. So all those micronutrients stay into the soil. And then we're planting again. We're layering that following year with more compost and putting our plants right beside maybe the dead plant from last year and leaving those roots in there. It's a simple way to do it in your garden too. We worry about the till, which is the hardest job, is you're getting your till out, working the soil. Don't do that in the fall. Cover your garden bed with leaves or mulch, leave it, protect that soil for the winter, and then in the spring, just go ahead and plant right into that mulch.
So do you chop off the tops of the plants, or?
Sure.
Yeah,
You can chop them, you can pull them.
the
I
perennials.
chop them.
Yeah,
I pull them and burn them, and then throw the nitrogen back on.
Yeah,
Compost.
yeah.
So, but
you could. There's
Oh,
different
that's-
ways. I mean, perennials you shouldn't chop down until the spring, like late spring.
yeah.
Because
This is
all
the
that
first year I did
energy
that.
needs to go back into the roots for it to grow, and then obviously the birds are looking for something to build their nest with, so they're using that in the spring. So
And I
we're a
put
big
larvae
proponent.
in the branches.
Yeah. So no, we're big proponents on like just leave it, let Mother Nature do it, and then we'll clean it up before we plant. So tomatoes are going to go in here. We call this the valley. This is like super rich soil because we deal with all of the runoff, right? So then all the soil kind of piles here. We planted hemp here last year, which was a great crop. So yeah, tomatoes, squashes are all going to go here. And then we leave like these pollination habitats to very organic,
And what is that, just unmowed, or do you plant a specific native landscape there? Or?
Well, hemp is actually going to go in here, but for now, see, we don't plant hemp till late. We first week of June, and I'll be putting hemp in first week of July, and I'm fine with that. But right in here, we have to keep our soil covered. We can't strip this stuff until we're ready to plant and go. So, and we try not to strip at all. A good deal of it's no-till, but in here it is. So you'll see the cereal rye, which is the tall, almost blue-looking grasses. Okay, and you'll see that all across the field. That's what comes up in the spring and prevents weeds, essentially, for us. Then immediately behind the cereal rye comes the annual ryegrass. And this is an annual ryegrass that's grown here to basically cover up the second set of weeds that come in behind the cereal rye. Because now this is going to get taken down, and we'll use this for straw. And now that the seed heads are coming, when we do our mow down, and before we bale it for straw, these seed heads will disperse. And they'll germinate a little bit now, but they're going to come back in the spring. And we have a volunteer. So I didn't plant that cereal rye. That's all volunteer.
Oh, wow.
And from the previous year. So if you look out there, we have these pods. Instead of singular cereal rye stalks, we have these pods of stalks. It does a really gnarly root ball, and it gets you a really cool, really cool soil.